In the span of 39 years, we went from here to here. As time goes on and as the technology improves, we can see the most vile stuff rendered with such level of detail that puts any piece of art that came before it to shame. I mean, just look at the balls on that horseman, it looks so real. But this wasn't the case 25 years ago. Back then they had to come up with such things as fixed cameras and foggy environments. Not because they were cool or scary, but because they had to develop such tricks to be able to run these games in the first place. But they also made them cool and scary. And no matter the era, the style, people have found ways to make something good out of their limitations, and in most cases they embraced it. And Faith, an 8-bit horror game, pulls some tricks that you would never expect out of a game that looks this simple. You play as a priest, and the only reason you can even tell this is because of a single white pixel. This is Faith, a game about the story of John Ward. On a September night in 1987, John goes back to a place that he has some history with to finish something he started some times ago, saying that what he's about to do has not been approved by the Vaticans. One of the best lines I ever heard. You know what? I'm gonna actually use it for the description of this video. He gets off his car and starts his journey. He finds notes about many things, sometimes even birthday cards. Hey, this isn't psychological horror. Something haunts John, and the only thing you can do about it is using your cross. That thing is fast as hell, whatever it is. John is a fairly young man. The wiki told me that, but I wouldn't know that based on his speed, because holy god, that man is slower than my PC rendering this video. That thing you saw is called rotoscoping. I read 2 Reddit posts about how this works, and now I get to talk about it. Rotoscoping is when you trace and draw based on actual footage, then I start adding stuff you like to it. I tried it myself. Made the Walter White meme. I know it's not up there with the same level of Van Gogh and Da Vinci, but hey, I did this shit with mouse and keyboard, like a man, not like those fucking losers. Erdorf, the creator of Faith, has used this method to create some cool shit. He also added a file called Goodies. In there you can find many things, stuff related to Faith, sketchbooks, memes. Also, there is an entire different game in there, and it's quite good. And he also added reference videos for rotoscoping, which taken out of context is really funny.
You wouldn't need to be an expert in body language to recognize the unmitigated terror emanating from the suspect's face at this moment.
After some fighting, he drops a note saying, "Father Garcia, please return Michael Davis to his parents, or we will sue you." Come on guys, there's like 100 notes or so. I'm not gonna read each of them word for word. That would be like 4 hours. But somebody was actually unhinged enough to make that 4 hours video. I think their channel is called Wendy is Gooning, kind of a weird name.
When I killed those 5 children, it was a lapse of judgment.
We don't know who Father Garcia is, or neither Michael. Yet. If something stands out visually, you probably can use your crucifix to get a note from it. Using this method on a random well results in an invitation card for a twin's birthday. If you go to that house, it seems abandoned. There's this old shit that apparently has a key for this door. By the way, John can die in literally one hit from anything. That includes spiders, demons, and trucks. So let's get into that house. And oh, what was that noise? Searching the house, you find many notes. Like if you exercise this toy, you get a note from Cindy Martin, mother of the twins, saying her husband Bob Martin has brought a weird looking doll for Amy's birthday, their daughter. that's not one of the twins. So he was probably stationed in the Middle East, and she will ask Anish about the doll because she looks she could be from there. By the way, the name Anish is not Middle Eastern, it's Indian. This woman doesn't even know how to be racist, and that's just sad in my opinion.
Why are you blue?
But to be fair, she's pretty paranoid. Every note you find from her is she worrying about literally nothing. I mean, she was probably worrying about something that actually existed, since we are searching her house and her house is abandoned. But you know, there was this one note that stood out. She talks about how Amy's favorite tree is dying, but Amy doesn't really care about this. She also says that Amy has been busy with her work in a clinic, and some of her friends started giving her bad looks since that clinic has some bad history. The house itself has some personality despite the visual limitations. Like, there is a picture of the family and a normal drawing, and this map here that doesn't include New Zealand. But let's get to the basement, because you know, it's a horror game and horror shit always happens in the basement. Also, that doll that Cindy thought it was weird is now here, so there was something wrong with it. And also, mannequins, specifically to scare multiplayer.
Oh, it's so hard! Oh, God.
Apparently some things were placed in the game based on what Markiplier finds terrifying, since Erdorf is a big fan of him. This kind of reminds me of another game that I don't really like.
I know when your birthday is! June 28th.
Like, if you're not Markiplier here or not born in the same day as him, what's the thing that's supposed to scare you here? Like, it's just a random date. But something like mannequins works because, come on, look anybody in a room with mannequins and they're gonna lose their mind. Don't believe me? Going further in the basement, you see the remainings of a ritual. Then something comes closer. That thing is now haunting us, trying to get us in every room. But you have that crucifix, which you're gonna use to defend yourself for 90% of times. Also, some other spooky shit could happen. Like this mirror here that looks like someone is behind you but isn't. Okay, I know this game is like every horror movie trope ever now, but be patient because it will get way better. You just have to be patient for like 40 minutes or so. Here's a letter from John to someone called Molly that has some words taken out of it.
My God, what happened to you? Do you think my face is pretty? I have to finish what I started. She's dying, priest.
This fight surprisingly took me a few tries, and it was surprising to me because such a simple game can have a boss fight that you have to maneuver and time your attacks and actually pay attention. Oh wait, does that mean this game is a Souls-like? So now we can go downstairs and oh my god, is that
A gun with one bullet.
Funny enough, if you shoot the gun and leave the room, then go back, you can now have another gun with one bullet. You can do this forever as much as you want. Remember this mirror? You can shoot it. This is actually very easy, but it drops a letter from John himself to Yale Psychiatric Institution saying he feels better. Everything happened with the Martin family was exaggerated. There was no supernatural things and I just made shit up. Please release me, thank you. Listen, I know some of you are thinking that this is just another game with the most original trope that is just all inside of the head of the main character, which has never been done before, and the only game that actually did this was I think more the chicken, and anything beyond that is just people lying, people making shit up. But spoilers, no, it's not like that. Okay, now let's go back to our car. Oh, this guy again, but we have the gun with one bullet, so Might as well shoot him. That's the good ending, the one that is canon. Let's uncover the rest of them, because I like being in this torture chamber called Adobe Premiere. You got the gun right, now you can shoot whatever you like. Or don't like perhaps. You don't like Amy? That's alright, just shoot her and face its consequences, you fucking piece of shit. Throughout the map you see a lot of deers. And yes, you can shoot them. If you do shoot one of them, you're gonna later crash into another deer, and this happens that I'm lost for words to even describe it. Don't like this random guy? Well, shoot him, and you're just gonna get the normal ending. That's kind of weird actually. Yeah, apparently this guy was just part of the cut content and the dev just forgot to remove it. There's a random pile of fox that when we get close to it, it says. So if you shoot the dead fox for any reason, you get the kind of a weird, off-putting ending. But none of these are canon. Some elements of some of them are canon, kind of, but except the truck one, none of them are really canon. And if you thought this game is convoluted and confusing, wait till you see the next chapter. Somebody apparently crashed into John's car, and I don't think he feels remorseful about it since he's dead. John goes back to his car, but his car has been set on fire. He goes back to check on the man in the car, and he's gone. He disappears, but not completely. Walking across the cornfield, you see a scarecrow with a big warm smile. It's not even creepy, just really wholesome. John continues his way throughout the field, but something is following him. And every time he reaches another scarecrow, their smiles are not as welcoming. John finds a note next to 6 graves, and that note adds some really disturbing but vague context to this area and the graves. We get to the church and we find notes, and it talks about how the church is moving on from the past events, and they are getting new orphans to take care of, and a new member, Marian Bell. This Marian Bell instantly knows her way throughout the church, and is very good with the children, and everybody grew to love her quickly. But on one unfortunate night, something terrible happens at the church. Mariam goes missing along with 4 children, and one nun is dead. A detective arrives who is not happy that he got placed in a church for his last job before retirement. He goes searching around the field with Father Clark. They don't really find much early on, so he has to stay for a little longer. He asks the remaining 2 children about Marian Bell, but they say, while being confused, like she's just in front of him, he should ask this from herself. But then after a while, they see Marian Bell carrying bodies of orphans into a basement that nobody knew even existed. Nobody except Father Clark is brave enough to go beneath the church and closes the hatch before anybody else comes with him. The detective is in awe by the scale of the events that happened. Demons, cultists, Satan, they are all now real to him. But what happened to Father Clark down there is unknown. By unknown I mean he fucking died. Rest in peace, Father Clark. John searches around the church and he seems to be stalked by things. He fights his way through the basement, and the only thing protecting him from pure darkness is a flashlight. Something is down there, so John uses his crucifix to defend himself from it. John sees the twins and other faces. The first ending, yes, even the prologue has 2 endings, is by following the child. The second one is way more interesting. If you don't follow the child and go all the way back to your burning car, then set yourself on fire, but quickly get to the scarecrow and set that on fire too, you're gonna see the twins and a lot of more kids dancing around you. And that's it. We completed the prologue. This prologue has this kind of dreaming feeling to it, and I'm sure it's definitely a dream, but John definitely has some connections to this church. For this very reason, he returns to this church. But before this, let's talk about Father Garcia and actually move on to chapter 2. You start the chapter by playing as a different character. By that I mean his outline is a different color. His house is followed by a bunch of things that you can find. A note that is the same note that you can get after defending yourself from the spider thingy 10 times. But I'm not sure if it's the exact same note because some words have been changed and tossed around. I'm not sure if this was some error that Erdov made, or maybe it's a second warning or a second print. There is also a clown nose that has no purpose. John Ward also has
coulrophobia,
so it definitely had importance, but for now it's just a really cool Easter egg. You could also see 3 photos of a young boy that is turning into a demon through the passage of time. In a basement lies something more sinister. A boy named Michael Davis, the same boy we seen in the photos and read about in the note.
How are we doing today, Michael? I like the cotton. You don't go until you get better, Michael. And I see Mommy and Daddy. I need to make you better first. When she let you pick on me, she'll kill you. If you find them to be people, you'll love me forever.
When we reach upstairs, Michael has taken the demonic photo with him. Also, side quest here about the note. I'm almost sure that Michael snatches the note from Garcia, and that's the very reason we even get it in the first chapter. So I'm going with the theory that this was a mistake by Erdov. Ah, so tragic. I can't give this game a 9 out of 10 anymore. That's so sad. Following the blood trail Michael has left leads to this cutscene.
Dios mío, what have you done? I have somebody as a pet. You can't hide from God, evil. You shall breathe the wrath of the Almighty.
And a really funny walking animation. I just want to take a moment out to appreciate how good these cutscenes are. I don't think I can describe it better than the example that Erdorf gave for these cutscenes, which is like those intense close-ups in SpongeBob. By the way, this walking that Garcia does shares a lot of similarity with the guy in the first chapter. The reason I'm saying this is because they're both gray stick figures, so they might be the same. But no, the main evidence is the ending that you get by killing him is called Father and Son. Come on, this has to confirm it. Editing ref here, I did a bit more research and apparently there was a mechanic in the game that if John slacked off and didn't got to them dirty demons, Garcia would jump scare him with a clown makeup. And Erdorf realized if he did that, nobody would take Garcia seriously anymore. Now back to John, who is now in the middle of some weirdly placed rocks. He continues his way through a very quiet cemetery. These people are not responsive at all, no matter what you do. I mean, what can you do aside from flexing your crucifix that now is in silver and not golden? What? Is it a storytelling using colors? Is this Breaking Bad?
More this.
If you're confused that why John smiled like a psychopath after showing a key, that's like a reflection of John and not really John himself. After that scene, those 3 people lose their soul. Going to the right side, we see a weird purple skull on the other side of the fence. So we go around and Oh, more gravestones to get notes out of. It's an obituary for Cindy and Bob Martin, the same people that owned that house in the first chapter. So you exercise the skull and now you can go into another section that was locked before. But after the transition back to the same old screen, you notice some differences. And something is definitely watching over you. This is a fairly difficult fight and kind of interesting, since the demon attacks with this human feeding tube. I don't know the scientific name for it. I mean, come on, I make YouTube videos. What do you expect? Dude, I'm not Vsauce, dude.
Do you want to see the most illegal thing I own?
Also, this fight is kind of frustrating because the area is really tight. Defeating this demon, we get a note from it. The note is from a perspective of a woman who got pregnant and nobody was happy about it, except for one random lady close to the clinic. Every time she came to the clinic, the lady gave her some warm, welcoming smile. Sadly, later on, she lost the baby, but after these events, she saw the same woman again, and she was smiling, but her smile wasn't as welcoming anymore. She got curious and followed the lady, and that was when she met Gary. Now, we don't know who Gary is, for now. The only thing we know about him is at the start of the game we get messages about how Gary loves us. Thank you, Gary. He was mentioned in some notes, but they were like very vague and all of them were like coded in red. You know, if I know one thing that Modern Warfare taught me, was anyone who talked in red subtitles cannot be trusted.
5 years ago, I fucking 30,000 men in the blink of an eye, and the world just fucking watched.
Going to the left, we see a lot of statues. It seems like they are pointing at directions. Going to the upper sections and following their instructions, we face another fight, which is not really difficult or really interesting, since it's just really quick, but of course, it drops a note. It's about a person who had an abusive family, and now they are free from it. The forces of pure darkness guides them to lure others into the woods and show them their power. Still, there is one more person that was in the tomb, so that means one more. This almost infant-like demon can only move from cloud to cloud. All you do is stay out of his way and use your mighty crucifix. Of course, it drops a note. This time is from a younger person about how they lost their grandfather and would do anything to see them again. Their stepmom introduced them to her friends and lured them into a basement with their grandpa alive. But it wasn't quite him, since you know he's dead. And after that, those same friends came into the house saying to him, you have to do work because you have a debt to pay. So back to the mirror. John, bleeding from his eye, gets to that locked fence gate. This right here scared the shit out of me. I know it's fairly like a jump scare because it is a jump scare.
Would you like to sign my petition?
But what makes it really good is the next screen. One of the few presents of nature that added some calmness to the game is now not so calming. And finally, the church. It's fairly different from what John dreamt of. It's exactly like how you visualize a place that you have been in while dreaming. It's kind of the same place but with a different layout. I might be overlooking this, and that was how Erdorf designed the church in the prologue and decided to change it for some reason. Don't know, don't care. You find notes, a lot of them. You find a collection of notes from a dude talking about how they're gonna be rich by recording paranormal activities in this church and uploading them into YouTube. Yo, Sonic called me at 3 AM.
Sonic?
Hello?
I want everything about my house off the internet.
But a spoiler alert, it did not end so well. Even though the church is quite different from what we see in the prologue, it still has that basement, and the hatch closes the moment you come over to the other side of the screen. I thought I was really smart and tried to cheese this out. That's the Spindly Lady, and to reach her, you have to play the candle game. I don't remember what was it called. One candle represents John, and the other one is the Spindly Lady. When there is only one candle lit, it means you are in the same room with her. And now the hatch is open. Here we find a note next to a skeleton who we may know, of course we do, it's Father Clark. Time moves different down here, according to him. By the way, if you take the first letter of every line, it all lines up to thanks, Cracked Ghost Games. Ghost Games is an indie developer who also made the design for the Spindly Lady, although it was later changed when the game fully came out on Steam. But that doesn't mean you can't find Ghost Games anywhere else in the game. Remember that game, that roguelike game? That was made by her. So thank you, Cracked Ghost Games. Continuing our path deeper in the basement, we find a weird drawing on the ground with blood. It looks like a clock, and the note said that time doesn't really work like normal down here. This is all assumption till you get to the next screen. If you don't move based on, I guess, Hell's time zone, you're gonna meet somebody very interesting. But however, John figures this out and leaves the basement, and once again gets back on the surface. It's been a while since we've seen these simple yet beautiful backdrops, but I was kinda traumatized since the tree incident, but it's still refreshing to see this again. But remember, you are playing a game that has psychological horror as one of its tags, so this moment of calmness doesn't really last for long.
The bodies of 3 young people were discovered in the woods outside of Sterling last night, in what the authorities are calling a ritualistic murder. Sandra Atwood, Angel Nogales, and Troy Ingalls are the names of the unfortunate victims, who were apparently stabbed multiple times and beheaded before being killed in a paganistic ritual. Pandemonium regnant. 2 of the victims' bodies were also partially burned, although authorities would not specify who. The bodies were found several miles from Gallup Cemetery, where residents reported a tomb had been desecrated. They also found trails of blood leading off into the woods. Investigators would not comment on whether or not these 2 incidents could be related. The arrangement of bodies in a ritualistic pattern, as well as the writing of certain symbols in blood, matches the style of several murders that have occurred in Sterling since 1986. The killings may be connected to last week's brutal slaying of Amy Martin, a 17-year-old girl by John Ward. Ward had impersonated a priest to gain Amy's trust before luring her into the woods and killing her. Investigators are asking residents to report any suspicious activity to the police. Authorities are urging the people of Sterling to not mourn the loss of Atwood, Nogales, and Ingalls, because, after all, they were degenerate devil-worshipping thugs who were hooked on crack cocaine and hated their parents. Why even conduct an investigation at all? That's what you would like them to think, wouldn't you, John? They were just 3 pathetic outcasts who got what they deserved. You actually did the community a favor when you found them getting high in that tomb. You stalked them through the graves and killed them one by one. You ignored their cries for help, their pleas for mercy. You put holes in their ruined drug addict bodies, and you chopped off their heads. Because everyone knows that removing the head is the only way to kill a snake. Well, guess what? You didn't kill the snake, John. You cannot kill what cannot be killed. Thou shalt not raise up what thou canst not put down again. Thou couldst not kill Amy. Thou shalt not destroy my works, for they are the works of the eternal dragon. Even now she is at thy door, her hand at thy throat.
yet you see her not. I will have thy soul, for I am the god of this world.
I'm here.
I hope I didn't spoil this for anyone, because you have to experience this for yourself. Thinking to yourself that hey, this is just another note, and then reading it, seeing how unhinged it can get by each word passing by. This was where the game took advantage of its own limitations. But however, now you are this spider-like creature that makes these piano noises while moving. But then we transform back. The Candy Tunnel. Here we find notes about a serial killer known as the Candy Store Killer. The info we have on him is pretty vague, and it's not known if he owned the candy store, went into candy stores for his murder, or maybe gave people too much candy and killed them from diabetes. The sewer was a place filled with drug addicts and runaways. Tragically, a couple close to the sewer were murdered, and it was speculated that the candy store killer might have something to do with this, and the candy tunnel might be his hiding. So the police raid this place, and it doesn't end very well. According to one of them, whatever was down there was no Candyman, or no human. The sewer itself explains the history it has by just how it looks, filled with trash and filth, satanic graffitis, and a YouTuber reference. Hey, there is even an image in the goodies folder called Pillow. I assume these references exist since he streamed the game when it came out, and the stream probably helped the game to get noticed more. When you see it, don't move. Following the blood trail leads to nowhere, but if you go to the other side of the gate and then go right, you can reach that place, and it doesn't look very good. Also, if you go left as much as you can, you're gonna receive a note, but with a small tiny twist. Going further into the tunnels, we find a room that is just pure darkness. No matter how much you search, you will still be lost in the dark. So we go back here, another dark room, but there's a thing here. Oh, flashlight, just like in the prologue. And there is the same demon fighting us again. Let's go back into that room. This place was definitely not built with the tunnels. This is not a serial killer's work. This is beyond human. When we look at the ground, we see written in blood, "They hate the light." I for some reason really like how this room was designed. These cult members are always getting closer to John like he's a magnet, and you have to watch around and make sure they are not close enough to kill John. It creates this sense of paranoia with John tripping and losing his mind, seeing stuff that clearly isn't real. And those glitchy and noisy sound effects really help to set the mood. It's really unnerving.
Here I am. Daily killing. Don't be afraid, John. Where 2 or 3 are gathered, don't them. There will be also. We can banish this demon together. You must protect me while I recite the 91st Psalm. Let us go.
This grey man comes to our help, who is definitely not Garcia. Now you and him gonna team up and fight whatever is down here. And your goal here is to protect Father Garcia so he could finish his work. By the way, he can just die. And I mean it, he can just die. And the game wouldn't give you a fail screen.
No.
In the last phase, you literally have to babysit him. Even though he seems invincible to most attacks, he can die in some annoying ways. Oh my god, you old man, move! So this was all in a dream. Explains a lot of things now. After waking up, you can explore John's house, and it's pretty limited.
I'm not going in there.
There is also a note from someone called Molly. From her tone, you can understand that she probably has a relationship with John. But sadly, she says that she can't do this anymore, but she would always love John back. I was watching a playthrough of this chapter and I noticed that John's house was set in a different color, but something more interesting was this note. It was not from Molly, but Karen. I was confused and later I found out that Erdorf changed the name to not associate this character with the dead Karen meme.
You know what? I am not a racist person.
So I had a plan to call Molly Karen from now on, but spoilers, she never shows up again. You get 3 endings for chapter 2, and that depends on your actions. The first 2 endings are very similar. You're gonna receive a letter from Garcia that says,
"Oh John, these cultists are up to some weird shit, John. They wanna go on and say
Audio Jungle.
you have to go alone and fight them, John. You kill each one of them. But me, I can really help you since I'm real sick, John."
And the ending plays out with John saying, "Oh, my nightmares, they're getting worse, and I gotta save the Martin twins," and he's gonna drive away. What an ending. The second one happens when Garcia dies in the dream. You're still gonna receive a letter from him, but it says,
John, you f***ed up, you worthless piece of shit motherfucker. But your soul still can be saved.
And John is gonna drive away like the first ending. He's gonna do his monologue but with a sadder tone and someone is stalking him. The third one is really interesting. If you were curious and gone up here, you would see this note that seems unobtainable. It has 3 icons next to it. The 3 great sins that John has to do to get this note. The first one is drawing a pentagram here, right where it started, with John's own blood. Then you have to go and defeat the Spindle Lady and come here and confess your sins.
I tried to save a girl from evil, but my fears overcame me.
But the church is abandoned and someone is inside this confession booth talking to John. You get it, he wants to eat a child, so you feed him one, and oh, it's the mirror guy. And the third one is killing this couple close to the sewers.
Well done, their good and faithful servant. We shall visit thee soon.
When John wakes up and goes to the living room, there is no letter from Garcia. Something is off. For some reason, the backyard door has been left open. You know, in 99% of video games, you have to go around, search everywhere to get random milk bottles and deliver it to some random NPC to get like a hidden ending or a good ending. Well, Faith Chapter 2 does that, but for the bad ending, which I think is really unique and it's a good twist on things. Also, Chapter 2 is surprisingly replayable since it does hide some of its tricks. Like, one of the scariest moments that I had in this game was while I was doing another playthrough of the second chapter. I tried to escape the flashlight and I didn't got it since I memorized the dark hallway.
Holy shit.
Overall, Chapter 2 is way better compared to Chapter 1. It is bigger in terms of quantity and it is better in terms of quality. But even if we combine these two chapters and the prologues, they would have nothing to say against Chapter 3. It starts before it even began. John is in a car with another priest, Father Allred, and John seems kinda nervous since it's his first exorcism. They reach the Martin household and John steps in without knowing that he's climbing a ladder down to hell. They meet with the Martin family and go downstairs. Yet another nightmare. John is truly consumed at this point. He's paranoid to the point that he thinks maybe the next time that he steps into another room, it would be hell itself. He has received another note from Garcia, a note that is next to his own bed. John probably saw the note at his doorstep and carried it to the bed and fell asleep, but I like to think that Garcia wanted him to read this letter so bad he broke to his house and put it next to him. The letter contains words of worry from Garcia saying that they don't have much time left and the profane Sabbath is happening soon, 3 days from now on, and they can't let the Martin twins have the same fate as their sister Amy. Also, another note from Garcia. He has written that he can't find the twins in the foster care system and maybe they went to live with their relatives. He also asks John to go to a clinic where Amy used to work at, and John has to go and disrupt the plans of the entire cult alone.
You're welcome.
When we leave the house, we can use the car and go to the clinic, but We can also search around John's neighborhood and also peek into the lives of his neighbors. I'm not sure, but I think this might have been inspired by a mechanic in Silent Hill 4. In that game, you could basically spy on the girl next door, and excuse my manners, it gets freaky, but not in a way you expect. So just don't spy on people and mind your own business. John finally arrives at the clinic, and the area there is not a place for a priest with a crucifix as a weapon. And you can actually listen to him and leave. Chapter 3 has different episodes, 3 of them actually. They are obviously connected, and the stuff you do in them matters, and it also affects the ending you get. But let's say every time you were at the place that you were supposed to be, you just left without stopping the cult from whatever they are doing. What happens then? Well, at first it seems normal. The area seems fine. My neighbors are doing fine. So back to sleeping. John wakes up, but today things are more off than they ever been. Something has been annoying him for quite some time now, and that thing is hiding inside that room.
I'm not going in.
But today is different. He isn't escaping from it anymore. He wants to face it for the last time and hopefully forget it forever. He goes in the basement and looks for the key, and when he finds it, something horrifying appears, rushing at John. John immediately runs upstairs and hears knocking on the door. John doesn't wake up from this, since this is his living nightmare now. They destroyed and corrupted everything John has. His house, his faith, his car, and the people who knew him. He has nowhere to go but hide in that room and face whatever is inside of it. It's a document describing John's physical and mental status, and this room kinda looks like the attic, and that's Amy?
What do they want from me? Why are you tormenting me like this? I don't know how you ended up here. I just...
John goes to explore one more time what has happened to the Martins household. Ever since John has stepped into the house, it's never seen a good day, and John did nothing to redeem himself. He was given many chances to make up for it, but didn't. So he deserves to be forgotten by everyone, all humanity, cause he's a slave to his own ignorance and cowardice. And the game ends just like that. But not really. I mean, if you got this ending as your first initial ending for chapter 3, you didn't do shit, so the game doesn't really end. I mean, coward, do you really expect the canon of the game to be John did nothing and fucking died?
The darkness of the afterlife is all that awaits you now.
By the way, a bit of a fun fact here, the phrase you saw on the screen is about disowning someone from a society, to a degree that even saying they existed could get you in a lot of trouble.
Okay. Feed him to the lions.
This was practiced in ancient times. The most recent example that I can think of is Yetzav. You've probably seen this photo of Stalin and another guy who was edited out later on. Well, that guy did a lot of bad things, and since he wasn't loved by the people, and later on he got depressed and was slacking off in his job, Stalin had him kicked from the group chat and also life. That was a lot of oversimplified history. Back to video games. Now let's say you want to actually play chapter 3 and at the very least try to stop the ritual. You find a poster for a banjo and a dead pigeon. You can search around the area and nothing really important. Since the cop doesn't let you in from the front door, you have to get in from a broken window. In there you can find pictures of unborn kids that are odd looking, and you can also find a crowbar. Also a note from Gary himself, and from the context of this note you can find out that he's the owner of this clinic and cares a lot about his customers, but also talks about how he doesn't want another surprise inspection from the health department. Erdorf has confirmed that Gary's clinic doesn't do abortions, but definitely there is something fishy going on there, cause come on, his texts are coded in red for a reason. And Gary also doesn't like Jeffrey for some reason. John is basically handicapped here, and the only thing you can do is hide behind curtains or other corpses. Somehow the cop comes downstairs and helps John to get back on his feet.
What the hell is going on here? You're coming with me, preacher. I'm gonna need your crowbar, preacher. Jesus Christ, what is that thing?
When we get outside, the police car has been set on fire, and the cop gets mad and goes after them and dies. But we can't pick up his pistol for some reason. I don't know why, since John is not allergic to guns. He did pick that gun up in chapter 1, but maybe it's not very Christian to have a gun that carries more than one bullet, who knows.
A gun with one bullet, huh? Incredible.
But now we can leave with our car. I mean, technically we can, but I smell unfinished business. Okay, don't tell anyone. But remember that metal show? Well, you can actually attend it.
When all is said and done, trust no corpse. The horror is dead. Basement 2. Return to bondage. Among the blooded. Lying still in silence. Mother of shadow. And door to afterbirth.
I'm looking for twin boys, named Jason Martin. Have you seen them? Who's Gary? I'm leaving now.
This boss fight has an interesting concept to say the least. There is literally a bunch of infants trying to eat John, and somehow you have to manage through all of these and also hit the orange lady too, which can be difficult. And you know, this boss has multiple phases. Like, if you do enough damage to her, the babies try to protect her and transform into super infants, and it gets chaotic. But let me tell you a little trick of mine, a little e-sport only secret, okay? This is top secret. If you take your cross up and immediately pause the game, then on pause, you can do damage without pressing space, meaning you can move and do damage at the same time. It works great for speedruns, since you don't have to stop and take your cross up while doing a fucking speedrun. I got many other tricks that I won't share to don't ruin the e-sport scene and the speedrun scene. Like last night I just found out that John actually can do bunny hops. Okay, now you can actually get back to your car.
Your savior. That you out there, that's not my father. I don't know what to tell you. I need to correct the father. So yeah, pray for Amy.
Don't worry, Amy, I'm coming.
More nightmares, more notes. This time from Lisa. The first note is about how she feels weird about her apartment and asks John to check on her. And in the second note, she seems desperate and definitely in some danger. And also Garcia asks John to visit some dangerous apartment that just happens to be this specific apartment that Lisa also stays at, and asks John to go there alone and defeat this demon without Garcia.
This is a two-man job. I can't do it alone. I'm done. That's it.
John drives to the apartment and gets in and sees another note also from Lisa, but it says, John, don't worry about me, I'm fine. The last few notes were just kind of a prank. So John goes back to his home. The apartment is probably the most packed part of the game because it has 10 floors, each floor has its own unique trick, and it also has a basement that I recommend to not go in, at least early on. In one room at the second floor, we find a knife that we can exercise, and a note from Tiffany, a cult member, talking about cold shit and being obsessed with Gary and calling Amy a whore.
Oh, she's 17!
Tiffany was also mentioned in two other notes by Lisa. In the first one, Lisa says that if she didn't answer, John should contact Tiffany, but in the second one, she says that no one in the apartment should be trusted, including Tiffany. The third floor, we can go inside one of the rooms and it contains a key and a broken TV. Nothing really special about the fourth floor, but this can't be said about the fifth floor, especially Lisa's place. The door there is sealed up with some weird demonic spell, but Gary is so kind and thoughtful that he actually left a note for anyone who wants to break the seal of Elu. Your answer lies in the blood-stained knife and the face in the deep dark. We know about the knife, but nothing about the face. It also says that The only ones who have ascended to the highest points can descend into the lowest lows. On the 6th floor, you find a crude drawing of a weird fleshy creature called Elevator Friend. And a note about someone talking about how this apartment is kind of weird. And he's right, for some reason there isn't a 7th floor. So we go in the elevator and it doesn't work, okay. But how about this? We go 1 floor down from the 8th floor and still no 7th floor. But even though there isn't a 7th floor, someone has written that there might be a 7th floor. Okay, I got one more idea left.
What the fuck was that? Wait, what was that? Wait, what was that? Holy shit. This is getting serious. What the fuck?
From now on, this little weird guy stalks John. For the right reasons though. Like, come on, if you live on the 7th floor and suddenly that floor is gone, just accept it. Don't abuse the elevator. At the 8th floor, room 8, there is a note from Gary himself saying how Tiffany, the girl who was obsessing over him, has gone insane and against the will of the unspeakable, and they should proceed with the original plan, which was using the woman in the 5A room for their vessel, which is of course Lisa. They even knew about John coming to check on her. On the 9th floor, you can learn more about the residents of this apartment, since you can find a Halloween pumpkin, and by exercising it you get a note, an invitation to a Halloween party at the Williams family, a family-friendly party, meaning no funny costumes, no bad words, no alcohol, no smoking, no Tony Soprano impressions.
What are you saying? He was retired?
Audio Jungle.
There is also Timmy's new imaginary friend that everyone has to deal with. And also Timmy has a new actual friend, Mr. Miller. Who's Gary Miller? Who's Gary the cult leader? We get another drawing of the elevator friend. Time to play the elevator game, but I already had enough of this elevator and this fucking elevator guy. The last floor has this room that is for managing the apartment. A camera, a desk, pretty normal stuff. Except someone has written in blood that you should sacrifice what you cling to. So what does John cling to? I mean, what does he have except his faith and his cross that protected him all this time? So John has to sacrifice his cross and go all the way down to the basement without nothing but his faith to God. And the only way down is the elevator, since everything else has been blocked by something. And the elevator itself doesn't really listen to John and takes John to the 4th floor.
It's on camera.
This sequence, in my opinion, is kind of perfect. It is so isolating. It's just John without light and without his cross, traveling through the nest of an entire cult with only his faith. It made me so paranoid that I was spamming the camera button to see what is going on, and sometimes it's just John imagining shit. Or maybe he did actually saw something real for a second. And these camera noises echoing through the apartment really works well. Like on paper, this shouldn't work because it would get annoying after 1 minute, but it does because it's so perfectly executed. It's really amusing too, since aside from a couple of times, there is no real threat to John. Except when there is. If you manage to get all the way down, you can get your cross back, which this far you took for granted. And here's the mask that Gary was talking about. And there is a note from Tiffany that it says, she has done the ritual, and Gary can't find her anymore since she isn't in the mortal realms anymore. She's now being okay, whatever, who cares. Let's talk about this boss fight that we have with the Peekaboo Demon. The way it works is you have to look out for the candles that get lit and notice them. It's kinda like 10% similar to the Spindler Lady, but not really. However, John gets through the Peekaboo Demon and finally gets back up. Since a lot of the apartment has opened up, you can go around and find notes. You can find a note from Gary himself talking about how a special demon has responded. When he comes over, he has access to everything in the apartment, anything you own, your computers, your bathroom, your family, and he says, I'm not making this shit up by the way, rent and utilities are due by Friday. So Gary is a cult leader.
I thought I knew God's plan.
He's a shady clinic owner, he also stalks kids, and above this all, he's also a landlord. Holy shit, that is a trinity of being evil. Well, not really trinity since it's four things, but you get what I mean. Do we have a word for something like that? Holy shit, quadrinity is an actual word. And also, in another note, he says,
guys, there's also another demon here for some reason. We didn't invite him or anything, he's just here, so just act cool.
So there are two demons in this apartment. Malphus, who Gary wanted to summon for so long, and Elu, who just showed up. Now we have broken the seal of Elu, meaning we can finally step into that room.
Lisa, thank God you're alright. Dude, what are you so good? It's so dark, I can't see the light anymore. I got here as fast as I could. Let's go, Lisa. I'm not Lisa.
Erdov has said that for some of the sounds, he sampled real tapes of people going through exorcisms. And I think this has to be one of them, since it sounds so real. It is also a very unique fight. Elu possesses one of these figures, and you have to quickly guess which one it is. It is mostly luck at first guessing which one it is, but the real Elu moves faster compared to the other ones, and if you don't guess correctly, you're gonna get possessed. And you have to get away from Lisa with wonky controls. But here's the thing, you can kill Lisa without failing. But if you don't, Lisa kinda chills and smokes. Like, weren't you possessed by a demon 5 seconds ago? Now you have saved Lisa and done your job, you can leave the apartment, and you have searched every floor except the 7th one. Here's a funny story of mine. Remember all the way down in the basement where there was this ritual? Well, on the wall there were these writings. Not 7, but 70 times 7. Me being the fucking moron that I am, I thought I had to press the 7th floor button 490 times. Please don't do this in any elevator, you will break it. What 70 times 7 means is Tiffany send 490 children into hell. And the reason why so many characters have carvings on their faces is because they want to send children to hell. And if they send a proper amount, something will respond to them. Like, that is not Amy having a third hand out of her face, that's something deep within hell. The way you can apparently get to the 7th floor is by combining these Roman numerals on these drawings, and there you are, the 7th floor. What the fuck, who is this? This isn't the 7th floor, since the lamps above the elevator doesn't really show which floor it is. This place feels like the out of bounds of a video game. It feels like that it wasn't designed for the player to see and explore. The only thing about this floor that isn't just emptiness is a window to the outside. The view of it is a sun that looks like a cross. It's like God himself warding John and giving him some faith.
Come on, that was some Shakespearean writing.
My God, Amy, is that you? Who's Gary? You did this to yourself?
I know most of you are at this point aware that this game looks really simple, unless if you watch the video with Braille.
I'm blind.
No shit! But to me, this is horrifying. Just to imagine how messed up probably this thing is. And as I said, she has carved her face and whatever, but it's not a hand coming from hell, it's an entire demonic shape controlling Tiffany. And she'll go berserk. You have to dodge her attacks and be careful because she is really fast. And if you deal enough damage, you have to witness the amount of soul that she has consumed. And the music, using these demonic noises for instruments, and then that high-pitched scream comes on. When I went to this game, I couldn't have expected this, which says a lot since this isn't even the best fight in the game. You have to wait for that. And after defeating her and leaving, you get a note from Gary himself that he specifically wrote for John. Gary says that John is just wasting time and he is happy that Tiffany is gone. He also questions what side John is really on. After exploring this floor, you can go back to the elevator and jump to the 7th floor, and you can find this room, which explains why they try to hide the 7th floor. If you put 2 and 2 together, you can understand that this right here is, well, was Timmy, and he should not have fucked with the elevator. And after this, please just leave this apartment alone. Just go. There is nothing else here, really. I mean that. Just get home and sleep to have another beautiful dream.
Mr. and Mrs. Martin?
It's awfully quiet.
Hello?
No sound can be heard, except the storm outside.
Hello?
The family isn't around no matter how much John calls them. The only thing proving that they were here in the first place is Bob's glasses on the floor.
You're at risk. Please
Amy, let's go back to the basement. You're pushing Yuri. Let's go. You need to get better. What about Yuri? It's better. You shouldn't save her. That's enough. She's here with me. You know. We are doing this here and now. All by yourself. Go ahead. Please, you're able to stick at me. Father Allred, Mr. Martin. Your body's got me. Please.
Today is the day before the profane Sabbath, and Garcia is once again asking John to go to a place that happens to be a daycare that the twins might be in, and Gary doing his shenanigans again. Oh, he wants to summon fuck Goku this time. Good luck, John. When he arrives at the place, he sees the daycare surrounded with officers, and given that there was also another officer at the clinic, it has to mean that they were supposedly after Gary, but they don't really know about these demons and all of this stuff. They just knew Gary was up to some shit. And since I have said this so many times, he's evil, guys. Like, come on, he's not a normal human being.
I'm in touch with humanity.
Since you can't really enter from the door, you have to go around and sneak in. Inside the daycare, things are not going good. There is a hatch locked between 4 objects: a bird, a star, a chalice, and a moon. If one of them is exercised, their color changes. So you have to go around and check these drawings to find out what color they were supposed to be. And these children, they are very imaginative and very creative. There are some interesting references in these drawings too. Erdov has referenced a couple of his own games, and he also referenced another New Blood game, Ultra Kill.
You insignificant fuck! Holy shit, these children are fucking crazy. Wait, what is that Ultra? Holy shit, that's Ultra Kill. Yeah, I get the reference. I get it, that's Ultra Kill. Let's go. Get the reference. Holy shit, what the?
Open fire.
Holy shit.
This is definitely where Gary and his fellow cultists operate. Built underneath a daycare, a perfect place for his normal activities. Also, this place kind of works like a fucking YouTuber's Patreon for some reason. Like, there is one note here that talks about the person who is reading being a tier 1 and a beginner for their unspeakable journey and to find out if they are a vessel or not. Walking down, there is a note targeted directly at John. She consumed 6 little twigs. Only 2 were left to walk as husks. Go ahead, priest.
Stare into the eyes of my mother.
You know something is building up to scare you, but you could see how slowly that thing is building up, brick by brick. It's coming towards you, step by step. So slow that you can hear its footsteps coming closer. It's going to the places that you didn't expect it to go, and at this point, you just want it to end and be over. But you are scared of the thing that it would pop up to get a reaction out of you. But when it finally does, you're relieved that it's finally over. Anyway, we go ahead and we see a statue that belongs to the Save family. The Save family, if it's not obvious, it's just an excuse for saving points. It was also in chapter 2, and the statue is really similar to an actual real-life statue of Mary holding Christ. But this is obviously a corrupted version. It even has it in its name, and by exercising it we get another note saying, "Oh, congratulations! you're now a tier 2. And then it continues about cold stuff. Oh, the animals won't trust you. Your own mother won't trust you. Your father hates you. Your dog will fucking pee in your mouth while you're sleeping. And here we are at the puzzle that nobody can solve. Okay, listen, I have tried. I don't know how much, but I have tried. And still, I don't know how this works really. And I'm sure Erdorf himself can't solve this puzzle either. And at the end, I didn't solve it. It was just a total act. Father already is calling John and telling him that things gonna be okay, while John stumble upon the bodies of Cindy and Bob. And when John finally gets back to the basement, things finally make sense. If you didn't notice, the number of cutscenes for chapter 3 is much more compared to the last one, since Erdorf before chapter 3 was drawing everything with a mouse, and drawing with mouse is like playing Dark Souls with a mouse and keyboard. This is a perfect moment in the game. It is based on the song King of Pain, but I like to think this is not based on a song for the sake of being based on a song. It is random moments in John's life, or even random moments from John imaginations. We do see important memory of John here too. John and Lisa in a church next to 4 other people, and someone who appears to be Miriam. When John searches around, he finds a room filled with corpses recently killed. Only someone who is barely surviving is there and begs John not to kill him. John is not an empty husk anymore. He's ready and proved that he's capable. Now he's a tier 3 acolyte, beyond saving. There is no going back now, and the only route to the final tier is through this, the Moloch. John has to find 3 purple stones. I don't know exactly what they are and what they are called, and the only explanation that the wiki gave was, it's pleased with your sacrifice. Yippee, to be announced. But there are 3 sacrifices that John has to make, and I'm saying sacrifices because he's Moloch and he's known to demand them. Moloch was also the name of a Mortal Kombat character that nobody remembers and nobody cares about. And to my knowledge, they never brought him back because of how much a goober he was. I mean, just look at him. Now, to get these 3 things, John has to do a series of missions. He has to get past through this monstrous cultist, and then he has to play red light, green light, but with a twist. And then he has to fight the mirror guy for the last time. And in the middle of this, a cacodemon also follows John. Also, the unspeakable creature, which is on the cover of the game and is the big bad guy, is based on those guys in that sewer in Dark Souls 3 right before Anor Londo. The demon, if it touches John, doesn't kill him instantly. Instead, it traps John in this asylum and hunts him unless John escapes. But eventually, you have to deal with him, and he has a ton of health, man. Killing him is not necessary, but I recommend doing it. Don't ask why, you're gonna find out later. John is deep down into the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole that he was trying to separate himself from by doing anything that he could, but it didn't let go of John. It's been building up to this for his entire life. John has found a lantern in this deep dark that provides him with some light, and it's a very underwhelming mechanic, to be honest. I think the flashlight was a good mechanic and it was used very well in that room in chapter 2, but the lantern is just a lantern, and it would have been fine alone, but you have to play through the most irritating part of the game here. You have to go around and follow these signs on the ground to deactivate these blocks, and you get followed around by a bunch of husks and they overwhelm you out of nowhere, which is really not fun or unique, and it was done way better in chapter 2. But the best part about this is a little Easter egg inside this cabin, which has a note from Gary to Jacob, the villain of the game Dusk. Jacob has also given Gary a dog, and since I have not played it, I don't get the reference, but I'm sure you Dusk heads would get a kick out of it. There is also a photo of Gary and Jacob and another guy which nobody is sure who it is, but it's probably this guy at the end of the first episode of Fallen Aces, the most recent New Blood game. By the way, go play Fallen Aces, it's so good.
How do you make a portal to hell? Sometimes it waits for someone who has already walked through it. Sometimes it opens itself inside the best, darkest room where nobody can find it. Sometimes it comes when you drive up to you. Hello, John. It's supposed to follow me. Lord, help me. Somebody please help me. This is too much for me. I'm so afraid. Please let me escape this place. I just want to go home. I'll do whatever you want. Just take me away from here. I swear it.
Finally, we know what happened that night. Why
John feels so sorry for Amy and why he thinks he's guilty. He traded Amy's life for himself to survive, and that messed him up. And that thing that made this deal was no angel, and is probably Satan. It's not even a theory, by the way. It's not me going insane. It's confirmed.
My name is Gary Miller. So you're the one behind all this. In the name of the Lord, I demand to know what the hell is going on here. Well, you have come this far. I suppose you deserve some answers. Fine, you get 3 questions, but no more.
There are 6 questions to ask, but he will answer only 3 of them. But since I have played this game for quite some time now, I have asked him anything he knows. You can ask about Gary, from Gary, and he would tell you that he's a normal human being and a humble landlord. You can ask about the injection that he gave you, and he tells you that that was for making sure you're ready for being a vessel for the unspeakable. If you ask about Malthus, he tells you that he's a demon and it's evil. If you ask about the second death, he explains that you have to carve your face and send the stuff into... I explained this before. If you ask about Amy, he talks about Amy and how she's the perfect vessel. But the most interesting one is the twins. They never existed. They were just an illusion, and John wasn't alone in believing this. He wanted to believe that they were real so he could have something to pay for. But they were not real, and they were only used to bring John to where he is right now, with the false promise of redemption.
Are we done chatting? I think you have stood in my way long enough. Time for you to finally kneel before the power of the unspeakable. You will make a fine sacrifice. On guard.
This fight is very fun. Gary has a bunch of moves that are callbacks to earlier stuff in the game. And he also has some insane attacks. Like, remember this guy from Dark Souls 3, the boss that sucked ass? Well, Gary uses him as an attack. And he also spams, which is a really irritating attack. Also really like the arena for some reason and how it was designed, and I also like to think these red things are demons spectating the duel. And here is that cutscene that you waited like 90 minutes for. This scene is probably the best advertisement for the game. I wouldn't be surprised if most people find out about the game from these videos. And that is a great moment in the game, because Garcia finally goes up after 3 chapters. After this whole thing, a few things can happen. If you didn't do anything, and I mean didn't discover any secret, you can't go to the last area. So Garcia points a gun at you, since he doesn't have faith in John and he doesn't want John to be accessible to Gary. If you did some of the optional stuff, you still haven't broken the seal, but Garcia doesn't hate you and he respects you. But if you did everything, you can go down into the heart of Gary's operations. It's the Martin household, but way beyond repair. But it's not quite the same place, since it's like a weird limbo. And there are some notes around the house that can be found, and one of them is a journal of one of the cultists from many years ago. It talks about doing a ritual on Miriam with her own instructions. They don't really get a response early on, but after a few days,
they receive a baby, a human-looking one, just like you and me. They called it Gary.
Behold my mother, praise. She tried to become the Unholy Trinity, but her body was told to withstand it. After all these years, I found the perfect vessel to take that honor upon herself. But we both know how that turned out. You have pursued me as far as I will go. Only one of us getting out alive. I will make you the first mortal to witness the profane Sabbath and the first to be consumed by it. But before I do, I will let you in on the secret. Gary does not know.
I was blown away when I first experienced this. Like, going from this to this is insane. The amount of stuff that can happen in this fight is unbelievable. At first it's nothing that special, it's just Gary and his friends, and then 2 minutes later, this is such a chaotic and crazy fight, with also the music in the background going so hard with such profound lyrics. And thankfully you can take damage in this fight and not die immediately, otherwise I would have lost it.
Amy, I'm so sorry. I couldn't save you.
John may not have been able to save Amy, but he did for sure try, and that was enough to be forgiven.
Amen.
And now you have 2 choices for John's ending. The one that you can go with Garcia hunting demons and kill landlords, but then out of nowhere Lisa appears and says, "Oh John, let's go live in peace in Tahiti and stay away from this crazy old guy." Okay, listen, I have some conspiracies here. I might be crazy, but hear me out here.
I blame the government.
But Lisa I don't really trust her, and I think she might be up to something. And I say this for a variety of different reasons. Like, one of the most important ones is, come on man, we all chose the Garcia ending because he's cool. He's like, he had that shotgun, he's like so cool, man. And finally, that's it. It's over. Well, there are some extras, like the survival mode, which you can fight the entire category of bosses, and the no demons mode, which is just a peaceful day in John's neighborhood. The way you can acquire this mode is by getting the Good Christian Boy achievement. And how do you get that?
You don't want to.
There's also the flashlight and the lantern mode for the first chapter, which exists, I guess. Airdove has worked on some other games too. Some of them are artistically similar to Faith, but some are very different. You can go and play those and also wait for chapter 4. And yeah, game good. I like game. While I make the next one, you can join my Discord. Patreon, if you're interested, you don't have to. It's not required at all. Seriously, thanks for watching the video this far. Twitter, don't. And remember, Gary might love you, but I don't.